State of Arizona versus Lori Vallow, CR 2021-001704.
What if I told you that in a packed American courtroom, surrounded by grieving families, federal prosecutors, and the full weight of multiple murder charges, a woman sat at the defendant's table and smiled? Not a nervous twitch, not an accidental moment, a full, deliberate, calm smile. The kind you might wear at a birthday party. The kind you do not wear when a court is reviewing evidence about the death of people who were once in your care. What if I told you that same woman had been married 5 times? That 2 of her own children vanished without a trace and were later found buried in a backyard? That the man she called her soulmate, married just 2 weeks after his wife mysteriously passed, is now on death row? That after multiple murder convictions, after being handed life sentence after life sentence, she stood before a judge and said, calmly, without tears, that if she were accountable for any of it, she would say so? What if I told you this story is not finished? That even now, appeals are being filed. That she still believes she will one day be free. This is not just a true crime story. This is a story about what happens when someone decides their version of reality is the only one that matters, and that the people standing in their way are simply obstacles to be removed. This is the story of Lori Vallow Daybell. And before this video is over, I want you to sit with one question, not about her, but about yourself. Because this story will make you wonder, how well do we really know the people closest to us? Stay with me. Nothing about this story is what it first appears to be. But before we go any further, if you are new here, welcome to Dark Trail Files. This channel exists for one reason, to go deeper than the headlines. Every case we cover is researched carefully, told with honesty, and built to make you think long after the video ends. If that is the kind of content you have been looking for, hit subscribe right now and ring the bell. You do not want to miss where this trail leads. And if you have been here before, you already know what we do. Let's get into it. There's a specific kind of silence that falls over a courtroom when something truly unexpected happens. Not the silence of boredom or routine waiting. The silence of collective disbelief, where every person in the room turns to their neighbor and asks whether they just witnessed what they think they did. That silence fell when footage captured Lori Vallow Daybell smiling during proceedings connected to the death of her estranged husband, Charles Vallow. A hearing about murder. About a man who had been shot and killed. A man whose family was sitting nearby. A man who had once loved her. And she was smiling. Some people will note that nervous energy can trigger strange reactions. That trauma surfaces differently in different people. That body language is not evidence of guilt. Those things are true. But here is what makes that smile so striking. It was not isolated. Throughout years of legal proceedings, from the initial disappearance of her children, to her arrest in Hawaii, to her trial in Idaho, to her multiple trials in Arizona, observers and legal analysts consistently described Lori Vallow Daybell as unusually composed, detached, almost serene in a setting where every other person in the room was visibly carrying enormous pain. Witnesses testified from the stand in tears. Grandparents wept openly in the gallery. A grandfather named Larry Woodcock sat through proceedings with grief written across his entire face. He would later stand at a sentencing and call her a narcissist and a murderer in a voice cracked with years of unprocessed loss. And yet, there she was, smiling. Forensic psychologists who study courtroom behavior will tell you that level of sustained detachment is not simply a personality quirk. It points to a disconnection from external reality that is deeply unusual. Whether that disconnection comes from genuine belief in her own innocence, from a psychological condition, or from something else entirely, it sends a message to everyone watching. The message, whatever is happening in this room, does not reach her the way it reaches everyone else. That smile became a symbol, not legal proof of guilt. Courts do not convict people for smiling, but a symbol of the psychological mystery at the center of this entire case. Who is this woman? What does she believe? And how did she get here? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. Back to a life that, from the outside, looked completely ordinary. Before the trials. Before the headlines. Before the words "Doomsday Mom" were attached to her name in every news ticker across America. Lori was just a woman living in the American Southwest. She was born Lori Noreen Cox. She grew up with deep roots in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. By adulthood, faith was not just a part of her life. It was the lens through which she understood everything. She married multiple times before Charles. Her earlier marriages each ended for various stated reasons, details that people who knew her would later revisit with deeply unsettled eyes. But at the time, none of it read as alarming. Then came Charles Vallow. Charles was a businessman, generous, warm, the kind of person described by his family as someone who would give you the shirt off his back without hesitation. He and Lori married in 2006, and together they raised Tylee Ryan, Lori's daughter from a previous relationship. In 2014, the couple adopted a 7-year-old boy named Joshua, known to everyone as JJ. JJ was the grandson of Charles's own sister, Kay Woodcock. He had autism and was, by every account, a joyful child who lit up every room. People who knew the family remembered them as happy, put together, the kind of family you see on a Sunday and think they have something figured out. But by 2017, something was shifting. Those close to Lori noticed a change in who she was reading, what she was talking about, who held her attention. She had become fascinated with an apocalyptic strain of religious thought. The idea that the end of the world was near, that dark spirits could possess the bodies of the living, and that certain individuals were chosen by God to prepare humanity for what was coming. She had discovered the books of a man named Chad Daybell, an author from rural Idaho who wrote novels about prophecy and the end times. Chad's worldview assigned people what he called light and dark ratings. People with light souls were righteous. People overtaken by dark spirits, he called them zombies, were considered dangerous and beyond redemption. Not the Hollywood kind. In his theology, it meant a person whose original soul had been replaced entirely by something sinister. Lori was captivated. In 2018, she met Chad in person at a religious conference. Chad was married, had been for nearly 3 decades, to a woman named Tammy Daybell. They had 5 children together. He was, by outward appearances, a faithful husband and community figure. But something happened when Lori and Chad met. And whatever it was would set in motion a chain of events that would eventually leave multiple people dead. Among the details that most powerfully humanize Charles Vallow is something small, quiet, and profoundly sad. As his marriage deteriorated through 2018 and 2019, as Lori grew more distant and more consumed by her new world, Charles was doing what many people do when a marriage begins to die. He was looking for connection. This is the quiet detail before the storm. A man trying to rebuild. A future he was preparing for that he never got to live.
You stated that your husband, or my husband, told you that he was going through a divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you have any way to verify that?
No, I didn't try to verify that.
Okay. So did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced.
Okay.
So on the website that you met him, did he say he was divorced?
I'm not certain.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men?
I'm going
Not naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
his divorce was not started.
Okay.
Evidence showed that Charles had created a profile on an LDS-focused dating platform. He had not surrendered to bitterness. He was not consumed by anger. He was a man who still believed in family and companionship and the possibility of something good ahead. He was preparing for a future. That detail, small as it might seem inside a multi-state murder case, says everything about who Charles was. He was not an obstacle. He was not a villain. He was a father trying to move forward with dignity. In January 2019, Charles filed for divorce. In that filing, he stated something that would later take on enormous weight. He said Lori had claimed to be a translated being, no longer fully human, in the process of becoming something celestial. He told police she had threatened to kill him if he stood in the way of her mission. He said he was afraid for his children. Those words were documented, recorded, filed in a court system. And then, on July 11th, 2019, Charles Vallow went to the home in Chandler, Arizona, where Lori was living with Tylee and JJ. He was there to pick up JJ for school. A routine morning. He never came home. A confrontation occurred in the home. Lori's brother Alexander Cox, known as Alex, was present. Alex told police that Charles had become aggressive, picked up a baseball bat, and that he had shot him in self-defense. Charles Vallow was declared dead at the scene. Alex Cox was not charged at the time. The shooting was initially treated as potentially justified. But as investigators pulled back the layers of what had been happening in the months before that morning, the self-defense account began to unravel. Investigators later noted that Cox and Lori waited more than 40 minutes before calling 911 after the shooting. 40 minutes. In a home where a man had just been killed. But the world did not know any of this yet. In the summer of 2019, Charles Vallow's death was treated as a tragic domestic incident. Lori was a woman navigating a painful separation, and her two children, Tylee and JJ, were still alive. For another 2 months. Here is the first thing I want you to hold on to. On September 8th, 2019, less than 2 months after Charles was shot and killed, Lori took her children on a family outing to Yellowstone National Park. It was a beautiful day. Photographs were taken. Tylee, 16 years old and full of life, smiled for the camera with her little brother. That was the last confirmed photograph of Tylee Ryan alive. 1 day later, she was gone. What happened next unfolded quietly, without obvious chaos, with an appearance of normalcy so complete it is difficult to comprehend even now. On September 9th, 2019, cell phone data would later show that Alex Cox spent approximately 2 hours at a property owned by Chad Daybell in Salem, Idaho. That same day, Chad sent a text to his wife Tammy, saying he had killed a raccoon and buried it in the yard. There was no raccoon. On September 22nd, Lori's friend Melanie Gibb was visiting and saw JJ asleep in his room. That was the last confirmed sighting of JJ Vallow alive. He was 7 years old. On September 23rd, JJ was marked absent from school. Lori told the school she had decided to homeschool him. Cell records showed Alex Cox returned to Chad Daybell's property that same day. 2 children, gone within 2 weeks. No reports filed. No welfare calls made. Nothing. Meanwhile, on October 2nd, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux, the estranged husband of Lori's niece Melanie, was driving home in Gilbert, Arizona, when a shot was fired at him from the back of a passing Jeep. The bullet shattered his driver's side window and missed his head by inches. The Jeep used in that attack was registered to Charles Vallow, the man who had been dead for less than 3 months. According to evidence later presented in court, Lori had told people in her circle that Brandon had a dark soul, the same framing she had used about Charles, the same framing she had used about others she had decided were in the way. Then, on October 9th, Tammy Daybell called 911 to report that a masked man had shot at her in her own driveway. Court documents later revealed that Alex Cox had been near her property that day. It was not a random act. It was a test run. 10 days later, on October 19th, 2019, Tammy Daybell was found dead in her bed. Her family believed she had died in her sleep. They declined an autopsy. She was buried. And 17 days after Tammy's funeral, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow were married on a beach in Hawaii. Photographs show them smiling, relaxed, completely at ease. Their children were not there, because by then, only Lori, Chad, and a very small circle knew why. By November 2019, the world was beginning to close in. JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, had not been able to reach their grandson in months. They contacted authorities. Police conducted a welfare check. Lori told officers that JJ was with her friend Melanie Gibb in Arizona. But when police spoke to Gibb, she told the truth. JJ was not with her. She did not know where he was. On November 26, 2019, police officially declared both JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan missing and believed to be in serious danger. Lori and Chad were in Hawaii. The clock was running. What follows is a glimpse behind the carefully constructed facade, a recorded conversation that captures two people managing a situation rather than grieving through one. Listen carefully to what is said and what is not.
Hi, Dad.
No.
Are you okay?
So there's searching the property.
The house right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So Mark means we'll be talking to you.
Okay. Were they in the house?
No, they're out on the property.
Are they seizing stuff again?
They're searching. There's a search warrant, so we're going to sit on this with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, so you tried to set up a call. Glad you called.
Yeah.
So we'll see what transpires.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
What do you do? Pray.
Huh?
What do you want me to
Yeah, right.
The recorded call between Chad and Lori, made during the period when law enforcement was actively searching for the missing children, offers something rare in this case. An unfiltered glimpse at who these two people were when the audience felt limited. The calculation beneath the words. The absence of the particular panic you would expect from a mother whose children have been declared missing and in danger. Investigators would later study communications like these as part of the portrait they were building. While the Woodcocks were falling apart with fear, while investigators were working day and night to locate two children who were loved and missed. The two people who knew exactly where those children were offered nothing. In February 2020, authorities located Lori and Chad in Hawaii and served legal papers related to the children's welfare. She was subsequently arrested after refusing to produce them. She still said nothing, still offered no answers. The answer came on June 9, 2020, when investigators executed a search warrant at Chad Daybell's property in Salem, Idaho. They searched the yard. They found what Chad had told Tammy was a buried raccoon. Instead, they found the remains of two children. Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow had been buried in that backyard for nearly 9 months. Forensic analysis determined that Tylee Ryan's remains had been burned and dismembered before burial. JJ Vallow's body was found wrapped in plastic bags. He had been strangled. He was 7 years old. For families who had spent months searching and hoping and praying, the news was a devastation no sentence can contain. For the rest of the world, it was the moment this case transformed from a confusing, missing person story into something that demanded answers at the deepest possible level. Who does this? And why? To understand how two adults could take the lives of two children and then vacation together, plan a wedding, and smile on a beach, you have to understand what Lori and Chad told others they believed. Chad Daybell had built a spiritual system in which people were assigned light or dark ratings based on the perceived state of their soul. Dark individuals had allegedly been overtaken by evil spirits called zombies in his framework and were, in his theology, no longer the same people they appear to be. Melanie Gibb, Lori's friend, would later testify that she had heard them speak regularly about these ratings, that they applied these labels to real people in their lives, that they had assigned dark ratings to people Gibb personally knew. JJ and Tylee had been given dark ratings. The children Lori had raised, the little boy who adored his big sister, the 16-year-old who called herself his protector, were, in their framework, no longer really her children in any meaningful spiritual sense. Lori's own brother, Adam Cox, took the stand during proceedings and testified that she had told people she was in the process of becoming an immortal, translated, celestial being, that she had a divine mission, that obstacles to that mission needed to be removed. Charles Vallow had been assigned a dark rating. Tammy Daybell had been given one too. The prosecution, across all three of her trials, argued that the religious framework served as a justification system, a way to reframe violence as spiritual necessity, to remove guilt from the equation entirely. Whether Lori genuinely believed everything she proclaimed, or whether the theology was constructed to serve desires far more earthly, was debated throughout every trial she faced. The prosecution's stated position was simpler: money, sex, and power. With Charles gone, Lori stood to collect on a $1 million life insurance policy. With Tammy gone, Chad was free to marry the woman he was already committed to emotionally. With the children gone, children who were difficult to hide, who could talk, who were connected to grandparents who would never stop asking questions, the path to a new life was unobstructed. Both motivations can coexist. That is often how the most dangerous people operate. They build a belief system that makes the monstrous feel not just acceptable, but righteous. What follows is not a dramatic courtroom moment. It is something quieter and more powerful. It is the voice of a woman who had no idea what was coming, who called for help because she believed help was available.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office. Hi, I need to report something. Okay, go ahead. What's the address? Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East. The corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway. Is it a suspicious person? Yes. Okay, what was he wearing? He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on. And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him? No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I didn't step out of the back seat of my car, and suddenly he was there, and he had a paintball gun, and he was and he was going to shoot at me, and I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing, and then he just kept doing it, so I yelled for my husband, and then he took off running around the back of my house. Okay, give me just 1 minute, stay on the line with me. Okay. That was North 1900 East? Yes. Do you know what direction he was going? He went behind my house and it's so dark out here, and I just went in the house and got my husband and son, and then they went out and looked, and he was long gone by then. Okay. So he was on the north side of my house is where he went to get away. Okay. He didn't say anything, or he just kept like he was holding the gun like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me. So, but nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded. Okay, and what is your name, ma'am? My name is Tammy Daybell. Okay, I will pass your information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now. Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lives diagonal from us that called you guys already. Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure it got reported. So, let's see, and what's your son-in-law's name? Joseph Murray. Okay, yep, it was him. Okay. So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Tammy Daybell's 911 call, made on October 9th, 2019, is one of the most quietly devastating pieces of audio in this entire case. She was calm but shaken. She described what had happened. A masked person in her driveway, a shot she could not explain, no idea who would want to harm her. She sounded exactly like what she was, a woman who had spent her life faithfully, raising children, building something good and honest. She had no enemies that she knew of. She had no reason to believe the danger was not random. No reason to suspect it was as close as it was. Less than 2 weeks after that call, Tammy was dead. An autopsy, performed after her body was exhumed in December 2019, determined she had died of asphyxiation. Suffocation. What her family had believed was a peaceful passing was something else entirely. That 911 call is not just evidence. It is the last echo of someone who deserved so much better than what was done to her. And it asks a question without a comfortable answer. How many people around us are living in danger they cannot see? There is a detail that sits between the bigger headlines. Easy to overlook, but I do not want you to miss it. In October 2024, while awaiting her Arizona trials, Lori's surviving son Colby Ryan released a recording of a phone call he had with his mother from prison. In that call, Lori told him she received what she called higher knowledge directly from Jesus Christ, that she was on a divine mission, that Tylee and JJ had visited her in spirit. And then she said something that stopped seasoned journalists mid-sentence. She suggested that Tylee had accidentally killed JJ, her daughter, her murdered daughter, who was herself killed and buried in a backyard, even after multiple convictions. Even after years of forensic evidence and jury verdicts across 2 states, she was still constructing a story, still placing the weight of what had happened somewhere else, still weaving a narrative. What does it take to hold a reality like that together? What does it say about the person holding it? Hold that question, because it becomes the most important one in the next part of this story. Idaho, April through May 2023. Lori Vallow Daybell stood trial on charges of first-degree murder in the deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, and conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Tammy Daybell. She pleaded not guilty to everything. The trial that followed was unlike almost anything American courtrooms had seen in years. Not because of its legal complexity, but because of the sheer scope of human damage laid bare over 5 weeks of testimony. Witnesses described finding the children's remains. The forensic details were clinical, as they must be, but the weight of them was impossible to distance yourself from. A 7-year-old boy, a 16-year-old girl, buried in a backyard while their mother was taking wedding photographs on a beach in Hawaii. JJ's grandparents sat in that courtroom every single day. Larry Woodcock wept openly. Kay Woodcock carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had decided that bearing witness was itself an act of love. The prosecution built its case on 2 pillars: physical evidence, including cell phone data and location records, and the testimony of people who had been inside Lori and Chad's inner circle, who had heard them discuss the rating system, who had been shown their constructed world from the inside. Before the verdict, before the sentencing, she was given the opportunity to speak publicly. The following interview, conducted before sentencing, shows Lori in her own words. Watch how she presents herself. Watch what she does and does not say.
The judicial system.
But how do you argue with that if all of this evidence came out that showed, that you, Chad?
The only evidence that ever came out is the evidence state wanted to put forth.
Well,
They manipulate the evidence to make it look however they want. And guess who helps them? The media helps them, because from day one, when someone called you, day one, whether it was Detective Hope or Detective Hermosillo, I'm not sure, called you and said, hey, Nate Eaton, this is going to be the biggest story of your life. And they got that information from Heather Daybell. And Heather Daybell and Detective Hoper are connected, right, because their kids got married. And they called and she said, oh, I have a story for you. These people killed their spouses so they could get married, which was totally a rumor,
I don't think
totally
that's true,
untrue. And then you ran with it and you got famous from it, and everybody knows what happened from there, right? So that's the way it goes. So the media put out their narrative. They kept on with it. The state went along with it. The state leaked stuff to the media to say what they wanted.
What's false about the narrative?
Oh my gosh, everything.
Your children were found dead in Chad's backyard. That's not wrong. Tylee was chopped up and burned. That's not wrong.
No, that's all mixed up. That wasn't.
I saw photos of JJ wrapped in plastic and duct tape. That wasn't wrong.
Okay, I understand what you're saying of those facts. Those facts in and of themselves are wrapped around a whole lot of untruth.
About how they ended up there.
Correct.
So if Tylee killed JJ and then felt bad and committed suicide, how did she die first?
She didn't.
She didn't?
That's part of their whole fake narrative. That's
Who burned her and chopped her up?
That's part of everything that they were doing. So I don't really want to get into all of those details with you because you obviously are very set in your mind. I'm not here to change people's minds.
I want you to change my mind. I'd love to hear any evidence or facts you have that might make me think, you know what, they have it wrong, but I haven't heard anything otherwise.
That's because you've been pushing this narrative for 5.5 years. Do you not telling me that your mind is not set on what it is already?
Minds can change.
They could change
Right.
if they're open to change.
Right.
Okay, so miracles are on the way. And you remember I asked you to watch a movie?
Yes, Evan Almighty.
I did. And did you watch that movie?
I did.
And did you identify yourself with the reporter in that movie?
I don't know if I identified myself with. Did you identify him with me?
Yes, absolutely.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so when did the reporter change his mind?
Remind me.
When he was floating in the flood on the ark. Okay, not until God showed the miracle did his mind change. His mind was like, this is a crazy guy. He thinks he's like Noah. Why are you so crazy? He's pushing the narrative, right? He pushed the narrative, pushed the narrative, pushed the narrative. And then the flood came. And he's the first one screaming. And he's screaming and he's running for the ark because he had been pushing this narrative the whole time, right? This fake, false narrative that this guy was crazy, that God didn't talk to him, that all these things have happened, right? That these weren't God things that happened, okay? So then he's the first one to get on there screaming, and when he's floating down the river on the flood is when his mind was changed. So when you're open to changing your mind, I will be happy to enlighten you to the things of God.
Well, I would love to hear what you have to say. I wish we had more than 30 minutes.
I wish we had more time too, because we could really get into it.
A couple of more questions for you, and then I know that you have some things you want to say. The night before Alex died, he told Zulema, "I think I'm their fall guy." Was he?
No, absolutely not, and I don't think he ever said that. I watched Zulema go through probably 13, 14, 15 hours of detectives grilling her. I've watched the interviews. I've watched them all. And I watched her be berated by them, threatened by them, that they're going to arrest her, that she had a part in this, that she's a co-conspirator, and all this stuff until they got her to say exactly what they wanted her to say. And she made that up. She made up a lot of stuff, and I felt bad for her because I didn't want her arrested because she wasn't part of any conspiracy, because there wasn't any conspiracy. And I felt really bad for her. I do love Zulema.
Did you and Chad have anything to do with Alex's death?
No, absolutely not. We were very surprised. No.
What were you and Chad and Alex doing in the storage unit, moving the tire and the seat back and forth on the day that Brandon was shot at and the day after?
So that's so silly so there was stuff in my garage that I was starting to move into the storage unit. That's what we were doing. And so I moved that stuff in there.
But the tire on the Jeep?
I moved stuff that had been in there. It was just sitting in there. It had been sitting in there. So I didn't have enough room to park. So I couldn't carry it. It was heavy. So I had Chad help me put it in. And the next day, Alex was like, "Where's all that stuff in the garage?" And I was like, "I went and put it in the storage unit." He was like, "Oh, I need that." So I was at the prison. At the prison, I was able to listen to it because on your tablet you have AM/FM radio, so you can listen to the whole thing. So I got to listen to it the last time before I came. But they did have one. They have one. I think it's a 2023 conference on our tablet here, so I've watched it over and over. But all the prophets, all the apostles, everyone in the LDS church is saying, prepare, gather Israel on both sides of the veil. I was going to the temple. I went to the temple every day for like 3 years. I was doing all Charles' family's work. I was doing all my family's work. I was gathering Israel on both sides of the veil. And Jesus came there. That's his house. And he talked to me, and he told me that he needed me to do a mission for him. And this is what we're doing. And the media has turned it all around, but it was supposed to be. You know, there's always a Judas. And I almost used to think of you as the Judas.
Me? Was I on the dark list?
No, but this is what I'm saying. There's a Judas. People think that Judas is a villain. And Judas is not a villain. You know what Judas was? Judas was a vessel. Judas was a vessel for God's plan to come to fruition. And he told me the other day, it's coming to full fruition.
God did?
Yes. So when we are, just like he told Noah, who was what? Steve Carell in the movie, right? So God came there and talked to Steve Carell. Is that true? In the movie.
Yep.
And the media guy didn't believe him, right? This guy's crazy, right? God didn't talk to him, didn't tell him to do it, didn't tell him to build a boat, buy all those lots, make his wife mad, spend all his money, build a boat, because that whole thing was going to get wiped out, right? So God has told me lots of things, and this is one of the things that he told me. He's using us as instruments in his hands to separate the wheat from the tares.
Did you ever think...
And people are choosing. Do you know how many people have left the church over our case, which, what does our case have to do with the church? Nothing. Has nothing to do with the church. We're not against the church.
Did you ever think you'd have the title of convicted serial killer?
No, do I?
Well, for people...
I mean, I guess you could technically say that, but everyone in the world knows that I didn't hurt anyone. I've never hurt anyone in my whole entire life.
Well, years ago, everybody I've talked to, your friends, family, say you were a great mom, so much fun, loved to dance, loved music, loved to travel. You were the light of the party. And here we are in a jail. How did you get from there to here?
God put me here for his purpose. And so you know who he needs? He needs somebody who's the life of the party, somebody who teaches the girls how to work out, somebody who teaches the girls how to have fun and dance and do all those things in this, the worst jail in the country. He needed somebody to come in to the worst jail in the country and strengthen these women. And I'll tell you what happened. We used to have this wonderful lady, and she used to come in, and she's from mental health. She used to come in on Tuesdays, and she'd be down there, and she's blonde, and she's really cute, and she's really fun. She's bubbly like me. And she would come down there, and she'd try to get the girls to work out and give them coping mechanisms and talk to them about stuff like that. And half of the girls didn't like her. They thought she was annoying, and they were waking her up and stuff like that. Because you know why? She wasn't one of them. She wasn't one of them. But you know what I have? I have 7 lifetimes. I have worse
So you're on your
punishments.
7th life now?
No. I'm saying I got 5 life sentences in Idaho.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
I've got another one here and another one here
I was
pending.
talking about the multiple probations.
No, I'm talking about
sentences for...
I'm sentenced to 7 lifetimes right now, basically.
Why didn't you tell all this to the police?
So...
Why didn't you tell them all this when you were arrested? Explain this to them. You know, God's told me to do this. Give your defense.
Really? What happens to people when they say God told them to do something? They lock them up.
Well,
I'm locked up.
Well, whatever the reasoning, if you really did think Tylee was responsible for this, why don't you tell the police? She had chronic, pancreatitis. Pancreatitis. JJ had autism. All of these things.
All of these things.
Why didn't you tell
She was sexually abused by her dad from the time she was 3 years old and forced by family court to go to him for 10 years. You don't think that was hard on her? She was in the hospital all the time. She had chronic pain.
Why not tell the police all this?
At the very beginning, or what are you talking about?
I don't think you've ever talked to a cop, have you?
You know when I called the cops? I called the cops 2 times in my life. Guess what happened to me? I called the cops when I was pregnant with Colby, and his dad had beat me up, and I had a black eye, and I was thrown down the stairs, and I was 8 months pregnant. You know what they did? Nothing. They did not help me. And the second time I called the cops is when Colby was 10 years old, and we were at church, and we came in the car home, and he told me how Joe had molested him, and he didn't want the same thing to happen to Tylee. She was only 3 years old. Okay? I called the cops. And guess what I did? I called them and I said, hey, this stuff happened. I don't know what to do. They said, we don't care. Call the county where it happened. So I called that county and I told them the whole story. Like, my son just came to me. He's 10 years old. This happened, blah, blah, blah. They said, we don't care. Call the county where the perpetrator is living. So I called that county and I said, this is what happened. And nobody would talk to us. And then the county finally called me back where it had happened, where we had lived previously, and they said, okay, come in tomorrow, bring the kids in, and we'll forensically interview them. Okay, so we did all that. I did everything that the cops asked me to do. And then when I was in there, they said, after they met with Colby, they interviewed him for 45 minutes, they interviewed Tylee, they came out, they said, Colby met all the criteria we used to prosecute, and we're gonna prosecute him, and we're gonna keep your kids safe. And then they did nothing. And Joe hired a criminal attorney, and they did nothing. And he never got indicted, and nobody ever even looked him in the eye and said, did you rape your children? And for 10 years, the judge told me that if I didn't take Tylee to him every other weekend, and 30 days in the summer, and every Thursday night, that she would put me in jail. If I was late for one visitation of dropping her off at a dad who was raping her in the middle of the night, that I would be put in jail if I didn't abide by that.
Did you have anything to do with Joe's death?
No.
Did Alex?
No. We didn't even know. We were living in Hawaii. We had come back. Tylee was forced to go to him for 10 years by the courts. Hated it. Came home and cried, screamed, kicked, hit Colby, hit Cole, hit Zach, scratched him, yelled, threw things through the walls, was a nightmare, had night terrors, never slept at night. Tylee never went to sleep before 3 o'clock in the morning. She's 5 years old. She can't go to sleep. I have to stay in bed with her till 3 o'clock in the morning rubbing her back because she can't sleep because bad people wake you up in the middle of the night to do bad things to you, Mommy. And so Tylee was a nightmare. Charles thought she was a brat. I didn't discipline her. Then I was in the hospital with her watching her scream and writhe in pain while she's on morphine because it doesn't work.
I've interviewed several jurors. You may have seen the interviews.
I haven't seen any juror interviews, none.
And
I have no access. I'm in here 23 hours a day. I'm in max security. We don't have access to anything.
Well,
so I haven't seen anything for a year and a half since I've been over here.
They've said they were disappointed that they wanted to hear from you, that you didn't have a defense, especially in Idaho.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If I get up on the stand and Trina Kay's sitting there, or
Rob
what's
Wood.
her name? Lindsay Blake, Rob Wood, right? And they're sitting there. Are they going to let me tell Tylee's story on the stand? You know they're not. They're going to object every 2 seconds.
If it's relevant to the case.
I'm writing it out. No, they won't, because they don't want me to tell that story because it's opposite of their narrative. It crushes their narrative. It crumbles their narrative. It's never going to be what it is.
As a defense attorney.
Yeah.
That interview is a study in control presentation. She speaks without tears, without the kind of shattered grief you might expect from a mother who has just been convicted of killing her own children. She speaks with the careful precision of someone who has decided, entirely and without apparent doubt, that none of what happened was her fault. She maintained her innocence. She said she and Chad would one day be exonerated. She spoke of her beliefs with calm certainty. The veteran journalist who conducted that exchange described it afterward as combative. Remarkable, given that Lori never raised her voice. The combativeness was the calm itself. The refusal to engage with the external world on its own terms. The jury was not persuaded. On May 12, 2023, they returned guilty verdicts on all charges. Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted of murdering her children and conspiring to murder Tammy Daybell. On July 31st, 2023, she was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. After her Idaho convictions, Lori was extradited to Arizona in November 2023 to face 2 additional charges: conspiracy to murder Charles Vallow and conspiracy to murder Brandon Boudreaux. Then she made a decision that surprised nearly everyone watching. She chose to represent herself. No bar certification, no legal training. She would stand alone at the defense table in 2 Arizona courtrooms and conduct her own trials. In December 2024, a court-appointed doctor found her mentally competent. The court granted her request. What followed alternated between legally complex and genuinely surreal. This is the moment the courtroom becomes a different kind of space, where a defendant attempts to control a narrative and meets the hard walls of legal procedure at every turn. Each objection becomes a small verdict of its own.
You stated that your husband, or my husband, told you that he was going through a divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you have any way to verify that?
No, I didn't try to verify that.
Okay. So did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced.
Okay.
So on the website that you met him, did he say he was divorced?
I'm not certain.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men?
I'm going to
Not naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Okay.
And then watch what happens when she continues. The courtroom does not bend for the accused. Rules of evidence do not yield to personal belief systems.
So was it your suspicion from the start of this investigation that led you to not confirm any other alternative?
What other alternative, ma'am? My job was to collect the information and put it together with the information that was being collected in the interviews. The information from the interviews did not completely match everything that I had learned at the scene.
Okay. Let's see. You did not test the wood floor, is that correct?
I'm going to object again to asked and answered multiple times.
Sustained.
You did not test the projectile, is that correct?
I'm going to again object to asked and answered multiple times, and I'm going to move to start striking every question.
Sustained.
You did not investigate my husband's shirt.
And object again to asked and answered multiple times.
Sustained.
Did you call Aloha, Carolina, and ask them about the fabric of my husband's shirt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that you made an assumption early on and only investigated the things that supported that assumption?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
These sequences tell a story within a larger story. Here was a woman who had spent years constructing and managing narratives, convincing people around her to accept a worldview in which violence could be justified as spiritual duty. Now she was trying the same thing in a courtroom, before a judge and jury bound by rules that do not yield to personal conviction. Every sustained objection was a reminder of that gap. Every struck down question was the real world pushing back. She clashed repeatedly with the judge. She filed motions attempting his removal, claiming bias. She insisted on her speedy trial rights, while complaining she lacked enough time to prepare. During jury selection in the Boudreaux case, she claimed illness and said she could not proceed. She called no witnesses in either Arizona trial and presented no evidence. What she did do was cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses, including Brandon Boudreaux himself, the man who had nearly been killed by a shot allegedly ordered by the woman now questioning him. He said afterward he did not enjoy it, but he said he owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, to Tammy, all the people who could no longer speak for themselves. This is the moment someone in that courtroom simply refused to be handled. Ordinary courage. The kind that rarely opens a headline, but matters more than almost anything else in a room like this.
You asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Is that correct?
Maybe, sure.
Did he answer that text message?
I'm
gonna
sure.
object to
I'm sure he did.
relevance. Again, 611, harassment.
I'll sustain the objection for relevance and hearsay.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband
And he told you all the details of our lives.
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me.
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
You knew a lot about me, right?
I knew what I've testified to.
What else did you talk about on your date?
Lots of things.
Like what, for instance?
life, kids, the church, lots of things.
Okay. Did he tell you about anything about our other 4 children?
Yes,
So you knew that we did have 5 children as well?
I did.
Okay. Did he talk to you about my daughter Tylee?
He did.
Did he talk about his relationship with her?
I don't recall that.
Did he talk about the contention in his relationship with my daughter Tylee?
I don't recall that.
I'm sure you don't.
Now I'm going to object to comments by the defendant made after questions, testifying.
We'll sustain the objection.
On your date, you talked about my husband was a life insurance salesman, is that correct?
I knew he did something with money and insurance, but I really didn't know the details of what he did for work. Like I said, I don't ask the details about what someone does for work when I'm trying to get to know someone.
But you knew that he sold life insurance, you stated that?
I believe that I had a vague understanding that he did something with insurance.
And then he brought that up again at dinner.
No, we didn't talk about his work at dinner.
I thought you said you did talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said you did talk about that he changed the life insurance policy at dinner.
Well, you were asking me if we talked about that he sold insurance, which that didn't happen. But yes, he did tell me that he changed the beneficiary of his life insurance policy at dinner.
Did he tell you how much his life insurance policy was for?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
$1 million.
Did he tell you how much my life insurance policy was for?
I do not recall.
You don't recall?
We didn't talk about you very much in that vein.
That exchange, Nancy Jo Hancock refusing to be intimidated on the stand, is one of the most talked about moments from the Arizona proceedings. She was not a trained lawyer. She had no institutional protection. She was a witness in a chair, being questioned by the accused, and she pushed back. In a case largely defined by one person's apparent ability to control the people around her, to shape narratives, to manage perceptions, a witness who simply said, no carries enormous weight. The courtroom responded to it. There was a shift in the energy of the room that observers noted and remembered. The first Arizona verdict came on April 22, 2025. A Phoenix jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Charles Vallow. She had argued that Alex acted in self-defense. The jury reviewed the evidence, the phone records, the location data, the 40-minute delay, the insurance policy, the timing of everything, and disagreed. The second verdict came on June 12, 2025, and this one was striking in its speed. After less than 30 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned guilty on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the case of Brandon Boudreaux. Less than 30 minutes. For a case that prosecutors had spent years building. Before this verdict is read, consider everything that led to this courtroom. The families, the years of waiting, the testimony, all of it converging on a single moment where 12 people were about to speak for the people who could not.
Right, the jury is present. Everyone can be seated. Do we have a foreperson? Has the jury reached a verdict? Yes. Will you hand the verdict to my courtroom assistant? All right, the clerk will read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona, in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2022-001242-001. Verdict count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019, as follows. Guilty. Signed, foreperson. Are these your true verdicts, so say you one and all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, on the court's own motion, I'll ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number 1, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 2, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 4, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 14, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Less than 30 minutes. That verdict was its own kind of statement. The jury had heard everything. They had watched her represent herself. They had listened to Brandon Boudreaux describe the moment a bullet came within inches of ending his life. And they reached their conclusion almost immediately. Outside the courthouse, Brandon stood with Kay Woodcock and Colby Ryan, Charles Vallow's sister and Lori's own surviving son, and spoke with the kind of measured grace that does not come easily after years of fear and waiting. He said he had chosen forgiveness, not for her sake, but for his own. The burden, he said, would never fully go away. We stand united, he said. We're still family. We always will be. In a case built on the systematic destruction of families, those words were a refusal to let the story end the way she had written it. Before we hear this, understand what Brandon knew in that moment. Nothing. He knew only that he had been shot at from a passing vehicle. He was alone, confused, frightened, and he reached for his phone. Listen to how fear sounds when it is immediate and real. Then hold that feeling as you think about what he would later learn about who had planned the attack and why.
Gee, I moved to a new home about a week ago.
What kind of vehicle is it that drove?
October 2nd, 2019. 9 hours, 14 minutes, 53 seconds.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just shot my window.
Okay, where
they're in
at?
a Jeep. I'm in the Cooley Station neighborhood. I was pulling in my house at 38755 East. Away, but I can see them driving off.
Okay, someone shot at your vehicle?
Yeah, and it hit my window. It shattered my driver's side window.
Okay, when you pulled into his driveway?
As I was trying to pull into my driveway. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm a little off breath. They just drove off. I saw them drive off.
Okay. Do you know who these people are?
I have no idea. I moved into a new home about a week ago.
What kind of vehicle is it that drove away?
Jeep Wrangler, had a Texas plate on it. It was,
Jeep Wrangler?
It was olive green.
Olive green? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second. Texas license plate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get the plate. I'm sorry. I got a little nervous.
That's okay. That's all right. Oh, which way did they go? Do you remember?
They're driving south towards Pecos Road, between Pecos and Wrecker.
Okay. Okay. Do you don't see the vehicle anymore?
No, they left. They drove off.
Did you see how many people were in the Jeep? Sir?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, did you see how many people were in the Jeep?
There must have been at least two because somebody shot at me and then somebody else drove off, and I don't think they had enough time to go climb from the back into the front.
Right. Okay. And then do you have any injuries? Did they shoot at you?
They shot at me, it hit my window, it bounced off. It might not have been a real gun. It was loud, but it might have been like a paintball gun or something. 'Cause, I mean, it should have hit me or gone through my window. It just shattered it. It didn't go through.
Okay. Okay. And your window is shattered?
Yeah,
Okay. And you have no idea who these people are?
no idea.
Okay.
They were just parked like right in front of my house.
Okay. They were parked out. So they were parked across the street in front of your house?
You know, in front, right on the same side of the street as my house, right in front. There's a minivan there. They're just parked right in front of that.
Okay.
I'm pulling into my house because they're gone.
Okay. Where are you at right now?
In my car.
Where are you at?
In my car at my house at 3.
Okay.
East Phelps Street. I'm going to walk over here and see if I can see what they shot at me.
And what kind of car were you in?
I'm in a black Tesla Model X.
It's a black what?
Tesla Model X.
Okay, black Tesla Model X. Okay. Okay. All right. I do have officers on the way to meet you.
Okay.
Do you want to go inside or do you want to wait outside wherever you feel?
I'll wait out here. Yeah, I don't know that it was a real gun. Maybe it was. I can't tell. I don't think it was because my window we should have gone through my window.
Okay. All right. And what is your name?
My name's Brandon Boudreau.
And your phone number? Okay. Okay. I'm going to stay on the line with you just to make sure you're safe, just in case they come back. Do you have any weapons on you?
No.
Okay.
That call is raw and immediate. The confusion in his voice, because from where he sat, watching glass shatter around him, there was no logic to it. No reason. No context. He could not have known that the person who had allegedly ordered the attack was someone he had known for years. Someone who had shared gatherings and faith with him while apparently deciding he needed to be removed from the picture. That is what makes this case so hard to process. It was not strangers. It was not random. It was closeness weaponized. Familiarity turned into access. Trust turned into a targeting mechanism. And yet, even now, the story carries one more layer. After her Arizona verdicts, Lori's attorneys filed a notice of appeal for her 2023 Idaho convictions, demanding a new trial. The appeal is ongoing as of the time this video was made. Chad Daybell, on death row, has also appealed his sentence. She still claims she did nothing wrong. She still says, with complete and unshakable calm, that she will one day be exonerated. She still, apparently, believes it. That is the detail I cannot let go of. Not the evidence, not the verdicts, the belief, the certainty. What does it feel like to inhabit a reality that holds together even after juries in two separate states, having reviewed years of evidence, have said that it does not? Before we reach the final sentencing, Lori was given the opportunity many in that room had waited years to hear. She was given her moment to speak directly to the people whose lives have been changed forever. What she chose to say and how she said it may be the most revealing thing she has ever done in a public setting.
Representing myself at these two trials was a constitutional right that I exercised. I could not have done so without my team. Annalena Ramirez, my paralegal, Jeff White, my investigator, and Pamela Hicks and Robert Abernathy, my advisory counsel. I acknowledge their diligence and hard work in helping me exercise that right. They worked tirelessly, and I appreciate them. Representing myself, I have learned much about the law through this process, and I'm grateful for the knowledge that I have gained. Knowledge is eternal, and it is only love and the knowledge that we acquire in this life that we take with us into the next. I have studied the rules of law, case law, and the like. I was amazed and enlightened as my understandings were completely changed from before I started this process. Before this long court journey, I only had basic understanding of the judicial process. I was of the understanding that both parties would be able to get up at a trial and each tell their side of the story, but I soon learned that the rules of law do not allow that.
Actually, they do.
The process is much more complex than that. It is not designed for that, although the Constitution of the United States was designed for that. The rules of law negate most of that. As a defendant, I was precluded from calling several witnesses. Other witnesses for the defense were precluded from testifying things that they did witness. As a defendant, I was precluded from asking law enforcement specific questions.
I was also precluded from admitting documents that the state turned over to the defense as discovery. The founding fathers of this country did not intend for the rules and laws of trial that have been implemented into this justice system to make it impossible for the accused to defend themselves. Their objective was quite the opposite. They advocated for a fair and impartial and speedy trial. It was never their intention for people to be sitting in jail for years and years waiting to be tried while the state continues to try to gather new evidence against them. This is what our unjustice system has become. Men and women sitting in jail for years and waiting to be heard. The constitutional right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness thwarted. My case is not unique. There are many here in Maricopa County that have been in jail almost 10 years waiting to be tried. The conditions of this jail are not for long-term confinement. You do not have access to direct medical care. You do not have access to proper nutrition. You do not have access to sunlight. You do not have access to decent dental care. In fact, when you have been at Maricopa County Jail for 1 year, they come to your door and offer you a vitamin D supplement because you have not been in the sun in a year. Imagine this for years. It is inhumane. The state of Arizona, according to the laws, since I am a prisoner from another state, only had 90 days in which to give me 2 speedy trials. That's 3 months. I arrived here at MCSO on November 30th, 2023. That is over a year and a half, 20 months specifically. That is over 6 times the amount of time it should have taken for me to have these 2 trials. But Arizona leaves this law up to the judge's discretion, and the judge has the power to extend your trial at his will. Even though the 6th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States proclaims otherwise. 98% of all cases in Maricopa County end in plea deals where the accused plead guilty. And I'll tell you why. It's so miserable in that jail that they plead guilty so they can go to the prison and have decent food, decent sunlight, and a chance to live. 2% of all cases in Maricopa County that actually do go to trial, of all the cases that actually do go to trial, only 0.2 end in acquittal. That is 1 out of 1,200 people who go to trial go home.
That's actually not the correct stat.
Is that a system designed to convict you? The rules of law governing trial assure that. As you witnessed in my 2 cases, the judge supports the state to achieve this outcome. So here we are, the state of Arizona has accomplished its intention. 1, to extradite me from Idaho. 2, to convict me. And 3, to add to my ledger of lifetimes. The state used countless taxpayers' money to transport me, house me, millions of dollars to wrongly convict me on 2 charges that they made sure judicially that I could not defend myself against. I know political aspirations, raises, and job promotions were at stake. So congratulations. I was convicted in the media long before I went to trial. We all know that there was no way for me to come to Arizona and get a fair, impartial, or speedy trial. And now that fact has been proven. The state of Arizona brought me here when I was already serving 5 life sentences. Now I will serve 7 life sentences. Will that be enough? Will that be enough? I want everyone to know that I mourn with all of you. I am sorry for your pain. Losing those close to you is painful, and I acknowledge all of the pain, and I do empathize. I feel it too. If I was accountable for these crimes, I would acknowledge it, and I would let you know how sorry I was. But I have witnessed for myself what it is like to leave this mortal existence and return home, when I temporarily died in the hospital giving birth to my daughter Tylee. When our spirit leaves our body and we return to the pure energy state in the spirit world, we immediately no longer feel hate, anger, envy, or resentment. I promise you. We come to earth to experience these emotions, but these emotions are immediately replaced by a blissful, heightened sense of peace, love, joy, and well-being. The moment our spirit leaves our body, we feel more alive than we ever did on earth. And we have deep empathy for those we have left behind. We do not want our loved ones to grieve or be sad. We know that they will because that's a mortal experience, but they come to comfort us. We immediately know the minute you leave your body, you are aware of who you are, why you came to earth, and that we will all be together again soon, and that this separation is only temporary. All of the cares and pressures and problems immediately melt away. And after comforting our loved ones, we move on with our eternal life, continuing to pursue knowledge and wisdom and understanding in eternal progression. Heaven is a very busy and happy place where everyone is engaged in projects that they love to do. That includes Joshua, that includes Tylee, that includes Tammy, that includes Charles. No one there, none of these people are seeking revenge or justice. So although we miss our loved ones, and I do too, I assure you that they are busy and happy and peaceful. I have felt the kind of contentment that they feel now, and I try to duplicate that here. So whether I'm giving 5 life sentences or 7 life sentences, I will continue to try to uplift and help and strengthen those around me. It does not matter where you serve on earth as long as you do it with love. It doesn't matter if I'm given 7 lifetimes or the death penalty like my husband. What things look impossible to man are easy for Jesus. Jesus tells us in the Bible not to judge, but this whole entire justice system is just that. So I want you to watch, because God will show the world great miracles. I will continue to love everyone I come in contact with, and I will turn this battle over to God. If this is God's battle, then the math doesn't matter. 7 lifetimes or the death penalty doesn't matter. God's miracles will abound. When a soldier goes off to war, he is a soldier. When a soldier comes back from war, he is a warrior. And Jesus is in the prisons. He is turning his soldiers into warriors. For the prisoners shall go free. Sometimes victory doesn't look like victory until it's finished. Prisoners who have been told that they will never go free will be free. And I want you to expect miracles, and I want you to watch for them, because you will see. We fear not what man can do, because God's warriors surround us. When the battle is relentless, and this one has been for over 6 years, remember, God is building his army of warriors in the prison system. He is turning Sauls into Pauls. When Jesus is sending his servants into the prisons to prepare his warrior team, we will be there only until this purpose is complete, and then the warriors will walk free. We are redeemed by Jesus Christ, so we are free right now, but his chains will break. Prison walls will fall. The power and majesty of God will be revealed. When Jesus is ready, he will call his warriors from the prisons, and we will walk free, and we will serve him. I will quote Moroni, the great prophet, from Moroni 8:16, and he says, "Behold, I speak with boldness, having authority from God. I fear not what man can do, for perfect love casteth out all fear." And in Ether, Moroni says, "And now, if I have no authority for these things, judge ye. For ye shall know that I have authority when ye shall see me, and we shall stand before God at the last day.
Do you have anything else?
No.
In this day and age where truth seems to matter little to our talking heads on the news and
That statement, that moment, the courtroom had carried years of grief into it. Families who had flown in, who had prepared words they had been writing in their heads for years. They rose one by one and said the names of the dead and described what had been lost. They were broken and furious and brave all at once. And then it was Lori's turn. She thanked her standby counsel. She complained about the conditions of the Maricopa County Jail. She said she mourned with everyone. She said she felt their pain. And then she said, if I was accountable for these crimes, I would acknowledge it. Conditional, hypothetical, if, not a cry for mercy, not a confession, not even a human acknowledgement of weight. It was a grammatically distanced expression of the same detachment that had been present from the very beginning. From the smile, from Hawaii, from the beach wedding photographs taken while 2 children lay in the ground in Idaho. The judge was not moved. He told her she had shown blatant disregard for humanity, that she had shattered lives and undermined trust. And then he said something that should stay with everyone who followed this case. Eventually the camera that you seek out, the media requests, will lessen over time, and you will fade into obscurity. He was speaking directly to the part of her that appeared to require an audience. The part that had been performing for followers, for courtrooms, for cameras, through every chapter of this story. On July 25th, 2025, Lori Vallow Daybell stood in a Phoenix courtroom for the last time in the Arizona proceedings. One by one, the people whose lives had been fractured by her choices stood and faced her. Kay Woodcock stood and read a letter written from JJ's perspective. It said, I should be 13 years old now. I am forever 7. And then, her voice breaking, she turned toward the defendant and screamed, I trusted you, before sitting down in tears. Larry Woodcock was not diplomatic. He called her a narcissist and a murderer. He was a grandfather whose love for a child had been used against him, who had trusted the right people and been shown that trust was a vulnerability in the hands of the wrong person. Todd Trahan, JJ's biological father, addressed the court and said, I trusted you all. I gave him up so you could raise him. I deal with the regret. He had made a selfless decision to allow his son to be adopted into what he believed was a loving, stable family. He had been wrong in the worst possible way, and through no fault of his own. Brandon Boudreau, his voice unsteady, described the years of fear and paranoia and loneliness that had followed the day a bullet came through his window. He said he had chosen to forgive, not because what was done to him was acceptable, but because forgiveness was the only path forward that did not consume him entirely. Colby Ryan, Lori's surviving son, addressed his mother via the court. He spoke about Charles Vallow with warmth and regret, said the lies his mother had told him had stolen a relationship before he ever had a chance to build it. And then Lori spoke. She thanked her legal assistants. She complained about jail conditions. She said if she had been accountable, she would have acknowledged it. The judge sentenced her to 2 consecutive life terms with a minimum of 25 years each, stacked on top of the 5 life terms she was already serving in Idaho. She will never be free. So here we are. Multiple trials, multiple convictions, multiple life sentences across 2 states. A man on death row. Families who will carry what happened to them for the rest of their lives. And a woman who still insists, calmly, that none of it was her fault. Lori Vallow Daybell will spend the rest of her life behind bars. The legal chapter is functionally closed. Appeals will be argued. The verdicts will almost certainly stand. But the questions this case raises do not dissolve because the courtrooms have fallen quiet. How does someone move from being a mother who held her children, who knew their voices and their laughter and the way they leaned on each other, to someone who could authorize their deaths and fly to Hawaii? How does a belief system that begins in genuine faith become a framework for justifying violence against the people you were supposed to protect? And the hardest question, the one I want you to sit with after this video ends, is not about her at all. It is about the rest of us. Charles Vallow filed for divorce, told police his wife had threatened his life, and still went to pick up his son that morning. Because he loved his son. Because that is what loving parents do. Tammy Daybell called 911 and was scared and confused. And 10 days later, she was gone. Because she had no reason to believe the danger was as close as it was. Brandon Boudreaux was driving home from the gym, thinking about his day, and someone pointed a silenced rifle at his head through the back window of a Jeep. JJ and Tylee were children. JJ loved his big sister. Tylee was proud of her role as his protector. They went to Yellowstone together on September 8th, 2019, and smiled for photographs in the sun. And then they were gone. This case is about many things. Extremism, psychological manipulation, greed, and systems that failed to intervene in time. But at its center, beneath all the theology and the courtroom drama and the headlines, it is about two children who deserve to grow up, who deserve to be protected, who deserve to be loved in the way they believe they were being loved. Tylee Ryan would be 22 years old. JJ Vallow would be 13. They are not here to tell us who they were becoming, but we know who they were, and we do not forget. This has been Dark Trail Files, where we follow the cases that demand more than a headline. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you think differently about the world around you, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what part of this case surprised you most. Tell me what question you're still carrying when this video ends. And if you're not yet subscribed, this is your moment. Every week on this channel, we go deeper into the cases that matter. We do the research. We get the facts right. We tell the stories in a way that honors everyone involved, including the victims who deserve to be remembered as more than footnotes in someone else's story. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and we will see you on the next Dark Trail. This is Dark Trail Files. The truth matters, the names matter, and we will never stop following the trail.